Okay, yeah. Just tell us a little bit of background about Wild Earth.
Well, Wild Earth Farm and Sanctuary is an organic, vegan permaculture project, and we're also a nonprofit farm animal sanctuary. So we want to create a space where people can interact with rescued animals, learn about growing their own food in a regenerative way, and kind of just learn how to live a better life.
Cool.
Yeah, so Heather heads up with her board of directors Wild Earth Sanctuary, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that focuses on the rescue and care of farm animals, and also does a lot of the growing of food here. And I head up Wild Earth Farm LLC, which is a business, set up as a business, and what the two together, they drive towards the same mission together, and they can just work in different ways and approach building the project in different perspectives. And so the farm is setting up to be a production farm. So this past year, we started our first going to market, bringing some of the stuff here grown to the market, and we also host classes. So this past, actually we just finished it up. So the past couple of weeks we did our third vegan permaculture design course with yourself, Graham Burnett, William Faith, and some other instructors, Bob Hadier, Anna Durrett, and Heather and myself. And I thought that went really well.
Okay,
and,
cool.
Yeah, that's kind of the simplified base version of what's going on here.
Okay. So what was your main motivation or reason for starting up?
I think a lot of it was we wanted to live a better way, kind of get out of the cities and connect with nature, grow our own food, and form relationships with other species, particularly animals that had been farmed. But we also wanted to share that with the world, so we wanted to bring people to the farm to learn things such as homesteading and interact with farmed animals, and just kind of bring those skills back to their communities, whether it's growing food or harvesting rainwater, like whatever sort of ways that we can make small changes in our lives for the better.
Okay, and in order to kind of set up, what kind of information did you kind of need to gather about the site and the project, or, the physical land, or more, the kind of invisible structures around what you're doing?
Yeah, as far as the invisible structures, I mean, we bought land in an area that's multi-generational farm, like mountain community, and being welcomed into that community has been great. Our neighbors have been very helpful in many ways, and so that's kind of like coming in is like what could be seen as outsiders, and having our first goal being to become good neighbors and to become part of the community, and just not really definitely making sure that we weren't coming here and just espousing our viewpoints and saying this is the way we should be doing things and stuff like that, just to kind of become part of the community. And then we've been
and learn from them. People who have been growing heirloom beans on this mountain for generations and know a lot of the natural cycles.
Yeah, and to just be there, and then questions start getting asked, and people start wondering, how are you building this compost and things like that, and it's been pretty pleasant by just taking it easy, taking it slow in that regard. As far as the physical site, we have inherited some buildings with the land that was purchased, and so working around them can be a little bit difficult sometimes because they weren't necessarily set up in the ways that we would have if we were starting from scratch. But we've really retrofitted a lot of the house with rainwater catchment. Actually, most of the buildings that we use have been set up to catch rainwater and to utilize that as a drinking source after filtering it. And just observing. I'd say that we've taken it pretty slow with observing, just the way that the land is. We've had it for a few years, and we're just starting to plant out some of the orchards and things like that after watching the fields and just feeling the space out for a while.
It's good because one of the things we wanted to teach was how you can just take a normal house and kind of adapt it. And so that's what the homestead portion of the farm is. It was kind of a normal house with a lot of lawn, and so we did a lot of observation as far as how the weather moves across the site, how wildlife interacts with the site. And so those were some of the things as we kind of tried to reduce a lot of the lawn and put in growing food plants and areas for a small micro sanctuary. Like those are all things we kind of watched for a little while before we just started putting them in.
Okay, and I think you mentioned kind of a little bit about some of the local people, but any other people that you've been have been involved and helped you set up at all?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great community of friends and family that have been a part from the beginning of, either coming out with helping us to move in or plant the trees or build the structures that are used in the gardens and in the sanctuary. So that's been great. I mean, we've had a bunch of vegan permaculturists out that have helped shape things and build things, and
our interns and volunteers are really important. We're a completely volunteer-run organization, so people who want to give up their time and come to the farm and both contribute but also learn while they're here is really important. So our volunteers and our interns are integral to the project, and a lot of the permaculture students have given us some really great ideas for design.
And you mentioned earlier that you've been using like the 8 forms of capital model. I wonder if you could just explain that briefly and maybe how that works in the context of Wild Earth and the farm.
Yeah, this year for the PDC, we've always field questions on what, could someone do work trade and these and that, and something that I have found and through discussing with others that a lot of times that kind of means someone asking us to find them work to do in order to trade, and it ends up being something that ends up costing some time when we don't necessarily have it when we're getting ready for the classes and such. So this year we offered people to barter with us using the 8 forms of capital that were laid out in I believe it was Appleseed Permaculture had a really good article on that, but it turned out well. So people were able to ask us, like, hey, I have this skill or I have this item, we have these things that we could bring to the farm, and then we were able to do a bartering. So it was really it helped people practice that, which I think is something that a lot of people in the U.S. are not used to bartering. And so it became this thing where, hey, I have this, and then we would kind of go back and forth 2 or 3 times and make it work for both parties involved. And I actually think it ends up going into a third party too. So it's like not just a win-win, we make it a win-win-win. So like the community benefits from it also, and the project here benefits from it. So I liked it. I know, and I'll definitely be doing that again in future courses. It's
something that is something to learn from rural communities, I think, because things like that are pretty common in rural communities where people are always sharing things from their gardens or helping each other build a barn or something like that. And so I think that it's something that we don't want to lose. We want to make sure that people are still able to kind of share in that way and trade in that way.
And the last couple of questions really here is, one of them is, how do you feel your project benefits the wider community?
Yeah, I feel that Wild Earth Farm and Sanctuary is a good place for an example. Not only are we an example of how to provide vegan food for our greater community, which is important as far as a lot of the animal products from slaughterhouses, which are used to grow most of our food. But we're also a space where people can come and kind of see different methods of gardening, whether it's no-till or raised bed. They can see kind of what's really doable. Like, how can I take a small backyard and grow some of my own food. Maybe bring a couple rescued animals into that environment and make it kind of a more participatory environment where we don't have to travel to visit an animal sanctuary or a farm. We can be contributing to like our own needs and those of other species right in our own backyard. So I think that's a really important part of what we do here.
And I guess my last question is, do you feel you've met the outcomes that you had when you started out, and that kind of, those original kind of visions and goals? Do you feel you're kind of meeting those, or on track to meeting those?
I think they're always changing. I think they're growing over time. It's really something where, you know, you kind of start with an idea and then it grows and evolves. And so there are certainly challenges and things that we're learning all the time that kind of change our trajectory and change our bit of our intentions, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a ever progressing and changing project that's going where it needs to go as those areas become apparent, and people that show up are the right people, and we're having a lot of fun with it.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you.